Well, welcome to January on Let's Get Growing, and we want you to know that things are picking up in the landscape this month. So mow your grassy weeds or your winter turf as needed, because this growing is going to pick up and we want to make sure we don't have weeds. Continue the major pruning of your trees. Remember, anything dead or diseased, crossing and rubbing, and open up the crown. If you need to get on a ladder to prune, you need a professional. How do you find a good arborist? You can go to the International Society of Arboriculture website and find a certified arborist. If someone comes to your door and asks to prune your trees, ask them if they're a certified arborist. And last but not least, ask them if they'll top your tree, and if they say yes, shut the door. We don't top our trees. Remember, we want to spray dormant oil on those crepe myrtles and red oaks and pecans so that we can get rid of those pesky insects before they become a problem. Another fertilization of our pansies and winter annuals will really kick them in for that spring flush of color. Remember to mulch all your bare soil, because it's still going to be cold in January and we need that blanket to protect the roots. Water before freeze. Continue to plant your trees and shrubs and make sure they have a good, viable root system. Don't plant them too deep, water them in thoroughly, and mulch them, and they'll take off for you this spring. You can prune your summer blooming shrubs, but hang off on your spring bloomers like forsythia, holly, azalea, mock orange, hawthorn, quince, and spirea. If you prune them now, you're not going to have blooms in the spring because the buds are already set. Last but not least, feed the birds. Today we're going to transplant an orchid, and you probably have seen these in your local grocery store grown in these little tiny pots. They are a smaller orchid. They have smaller blooms, but they do need to be repotted. Let me show you what I mean. This is the decorative container, no holes in it. Then this is the container it was grown in the nursery. And then you can see that it is quite root bound. Now, in its original container, I'm just teasing the roots apart a little bit. In its original container, this was grown in sphagnum peat moss, like they make hanging baskets out of. But we're going to transplant into a friable, loose moisture control potting soil. See, I've just kind of loosened up the roots. So what I've mixed up here is bark mulch and potting soil. And I'm going to add lava rock. And lava rock is porous and it's light, but it'll help maintain moisture but drain. See, it has little holes in it. So I'm just going to mix this up with the lava rock, bark mulch, and you can see this is pine bark mulch, and I use it because it has tannic acid in it and it's very acidic, and it helps the plants grow a little bit better, particularly orchids. Because orchids in their native environment grow on trees. They're epiphilic. That means that they'll live on something, but they're not taking anything out of it. So in its native environment, it would grow on a tree or in a bog area, maybe on a trunk or, you know, a big old log. But you can see there's no roots on the inside. They're all to the outside. So I'm just going to kind of tease them apart. I'm going to add this mixture to the container. And I'm going to kind of build up a little mound in the middle. Then I'm going to spread this little baby's roots out. You can see I'm going to leave it up kind of high in the container. And it doesn't matter if the roots are sticking out. because they're pretty much aerial roots anyway. So you just turn it clockwise, rotate it, fill it. And I have most of the lava rock on the bottom to facilitate drainage. And then you'll notice that this pot has holes all in it. Those are called orchid pots, so that you can get good drainage and also good air movement. And you can see I've left the roots basically on top of the soil. It's anchored in the pot. It's not wiggling, so it's a good, solid planting. Remember, if a plant's moving, it won't root. So don't stuff it in too hard. We just want to barely put it in. And then we'll water it thoroughly and leave it in a bright location. Usually a kitchen window works really well. You can also add decorative rocks such as this to add a little contrast and a little interest to the container. Just remember, water thoroughly and then don't water till they're dry. This is going to bloom in the spring and it's dormant during the winter. That's when you repot, is during the winter on orchids. All your other houseplants hold off till spring. That's it on January. Do what you need to do and get it done soon.